So you want to know what's good in Joust? You guys have been asking, and I'm going to tell you. We're going to be doing a little video here on the 10 10 of the strongest, not guaranteed strongest. I honestly just have not played enough Joust to know like exactly, like I think this is exactly what I think is the strongest in order, and like making a tier list. Like few of you guys have been asking for a tier list. Unfortunately, don't feel confident enough to build one of those, but I can give you 10 of the strongest gods that I've been finding in Joust, and very confidently I can lay out some like cookie cutter builds for you on how to build them. So it's all on screen right now. It is intentional that you can see this. If you guys just want to like skip through everything, just read off the build and just throw it in your game and figure it out for yourself, go ahead. But if you want to, figure out all the thought process behind these items, when and where you would build things, and I've got a lot of fill written in there, figure out what items take the place of that fill category. Definitely stick around. We'll be talking about a lot of carry characters in there. We got the mage type, the hunter type ADC. We even got the ability ADC, and we've got a lot of tanks with some very, very interesting builds. And even some aspect gameplay. Only one of these characters has the aspect, but these are characters that I've messed around a good bit with, and I've been finding to be quite strong in Joust, and I'm very confident in the builds that I've constructed for them because I've done the proper testing both in Joust and outside of Joust, and I'm quite comfortable with these builds and know they work very well. So let's go to the first god. We'll be talking about a mage nuker character, good poke, really solid, strongest mage in the game, I would say, as of now, Hecate. So her build, let's rifle through this pretty quick. You can choose either Conduit or Sands, really solid for mages. Sands is my favorite. It's just the most consistent, gives you that nice CD rate, intelligence, and whatnot. And then pretty cookie cutter, pretty simple build that you can go on her is just Soul Gem, good stats, nice intelligence, good lifesteal, and you got some CD. Just hard to go wrong with that first item. There are other first items you can consider, like a Book of Thoth and Doom Orb are both solid options to go first. But I found the Soul Gem to just be like a little easier if you're just trying to figure out builds to try out. Definitely try the Soul Gem Rush. A second item, we get the Gem of Focus. This guy is just more CD rate and just a really OP passive. You can get up to, what's that, 85 intelligence, 15 CD, and 6% movement speed off of this Gem of Focus. And the Soul Gem will help you be able to keep up that Gem of Focus passive. Just a really strong item. Should be building it pretty much every mage build. Next item, we just got to get some pen at this point. Or you could get anti-heal from like a Divine if you really, really need it. Well, Divine is pen. So if you really need Divine, I would recommend try getting Ruinous Venom. I've been liking doing this, delaying finishing the Divine, because I just like the pen, heavier pen from other options. So if you really need anti-heal, just get either Ruinous Poison or Ruinous Venom. It doesn't cost very much gold to get one of those, and then you can finish the Divine later whenever it's comfortable. Other than that, you do want to get heavier pen, like I was saying. So your two options are Obsidian Shard and Totem of Death. Totem of Death works every time you hit a god with an ability. You get a stack, up to 4 stacks. Every stack gives you 7.5% pen, so you can get up to 30% pen with maximum stacks on this guy. And more importantly, it gives you CD rate, so you'll just have even more abilities to spam. The trade-off, though, versus like buying Obsidian Shard for heavy pen, is Obsidian Shard gives more consistent pen, because it gives you 20% all the time, and it gives you only the cost of 2,400. Totem of Death is 2,800. So you got to make a judgment call here, which one you rather have. A little bit more intelligence from the Shard as well. So a little bit more consistent to probably go Shard first. But the whole idea with mage builds in general is you're just stacking a lot of pen so you can deal as close to true damage as possible. Soul Reaver in its current state is not the most particularly strong. So we just stack pen. There's no cap to pen in Smite 2. Next item here is Ratatouille. If there are 3 items you have to have in every single mage build, it's Gem of Focus, Obsidian Shard, and Ratatouille. Those are your most important items. Everything else is just trying to make the game feel more comfortable. As long as you have those 3 items in your build, you'll be good. Ratatouille gives you a 20% intelligence bonus. So, especially in a game where scaling is infinite with 3k pots that you can stack, Ratatouille is just going to be an incredibly, incredibly strong item, giving you even more intelligence on everything you build. Or every intelligence item you build, I suppose. Last item, you can get pretty much whatever you want. This is the fill slot. If you bought Divine earlier, you would obviously have Divine. But you can switch it up. There are a lot of solid items. On Hecate, I would recommend considering Cosmic Horror, which is just a really big stat stick. Gives you a lot of CD rate and some nice intelligence, good stats, even more mana regen. You could consider getting Staff of Mirrodin just for additional cast of your abilities. I think more often than not, you're going to buy Cosmic Horror, just as the stat stick feels nice. But you could also consider Doom Orb. Really good penetration, additionally, if the tanks are an issue. Or you could even consider something like Dreamer's Idol, which will help you against characters like Ares. You can displacement immune the Ares ult. So if you build Dreamer's Idol, you can use this item against Ares and avoid his ultimate from pulling you. Hecate, of course, doesn't have any built-in CC immunity. So instead of having to use your beads every time for the Ares ult and play really far back, you can simply buy a Dreamer's Idol. You could also go a little bit more defensive if you're against like an Odin and you don't want to have to ult out of his cage every time. You could grab something like a Helm of Darkness, because that will make you pass through his cage. Hard for you to get out without ulting, right? You could even grab like a Talisman of Purification if you're really worried about CC. Like, there are options, like Cersei's Hexstone will make you safe against CC, but typically you want to try and get one of those intelligence items, right? So, those are your options, and that's Hecate. Only other thing is you finish your starter. Yeah, no, not really much of a choice there. You want to get this as soon as possible. Sometimes it's better to get Rod first. It's just up to you what you want to do. But yeah, that's Hecate. Second up, we got Mr. Zeus. Very, very strong character right now in any game mode. He's a strong character. But in Joust, especially this guy, his DPS is off the charts. If you can protect this guy, he will do a lot for you. You can build him a multitude of ways. We're going to be going over both a mage style and a ADC, like, hunter style. So first we'll start off with the mage style. You can get, once again, either of these mage starters, Conduit or Sands. Once again, prefer the Sands, just because the cooldown is just a little bit more consistent in my opinion. And then Zeus, his first item is a little open to interpretation. You could get Soul Gem, but Zeus isn't exactly like the greatest Soul Gem user, I wouldn't say. So you got options. You can start Book of Thoth, Soul Gem, or Doom Orb are probably the most consistent first items for him. You could alternatively go like Gem of Focus first, but I personally find Gem of Focus isn't as impactful until you have some more base stats so that you can keep this Gem of Focus passive going without worrying about your mana too much. So just for the sake of demonstration, we'll rush a Book of Thoth on Zeus, and then your second item, very similar to Hecate, is you just rush Gem of Focus. You have like infinite mana from the book, so your Gem of Focus will be really nice. Zeus also has an insane amount of scaling, so if you do go this build, you're going to have a load of intelligence come the late game, and you're going to be feeling really, really powerful with your abilities. Your Chain Lightning, I think we looked at it earlier. At rank 5, Chain Lightning has like, what is it? Let me look at it actually. It hits 7 times with 50% scaling each time, so you get 350% scaling from his Chain Lightning. So, you know, if you got a lot of intelligence, that 350% scaling is going to feel pretty good. And then, yeah, after that, you just do a similar thing to Hecate. You just want Pen is the main thing. So if you're, like, super snowballing, you could, like, go Rod, get crazy, get some extra intelligence. You did buy that book, so you got a lot of intelligence already. Or you could be, you know, more traditional. Do the same thing that we were talking about with Hecate, where you consider the Shard or the Totem. Do you want to pay a little bit more gold for some CD, a little bit less intelligence, but potentially a higher Pen? Or do you want to get just, like, the more consistent Shard? Shard is going to be the more consistent one to grab pretty much every time, just because it's like guaranteed and really easy to use. But I would recommend going both of these in most games. If we're just talking cookie cutter, you're just trying to do something nice and simple. And then same thing with Hecate. In every mage build, you want Ratatouille. If you don't have Ratatouille, you're doing a little bit of trolling. You're doing yourself a disservice. And then you have, once again, that fill option. Zeus is a little bit more creative. There are some better options on him. You could get World Stone and really spam his ult. He's got a 70-second base cooldown ult at level 20. A little bit lower on the display here because I have some CD built. But you can get a really low cooldown Zeus ult. And let me just see what it actually gets to when you use this ult in max rank. 33-second Zeus ult if you build this item. 46.67 without it with this build. So you can have Zeus ults pretty darn often if you so desire it. Other options are the Dreamer's Idol, just for massive intelligence. Little safety to like stuff like Ares ult, since it gives you displacement immunity. And just that really massive burst, it can be nice. Staff of Mirren is really nice on Zeus. Gives you that additional ability to use. Long cooldown, 150, but you can double detonate is the big thing you can do here. So I pop my Mirren in. Just double 730 on their heads, because when you detonate, you don't lose the charges anymore on Zeus. So that Staff of Mirren is quite powerful on Zeus. You could even get it a little earlier in this build. Get it maybe where the totem and the shard are, just right after you get your first pen option. So Zeus is a little bit more flexible in that regard. You could even get like a little freaky and maybe even purchase yourself a Polynomicon. Once again, like Cosmic Horror is a nice option to consider just for a stat stick. I personally would probably go Staff of Mirrodin more often than not somewhere in my Zeus build, because that double detonate is just so good if you're going for that burst Zeus. But other options, once again, you have the Doom Orb for that movement speed and even more pen. And then Divine. Of course, if you really feel like you need anti-heal, I find Zeus kind of does fine just bursting people down without Divine. But if you were to get Divine, you could do the similar thing that we talked about on Hecate, where you buy either Ruinous Poison or Ruinous Venom. And then you finish it later down the line in your build whenever it feels comfortable and you feel like you're dealing enough damage with your core items already. So yeah, that's Zeus from a mage build. But we also got... Oh, I have to quickly exit and come back in because it won't let me sell the starter. We got the auto attack Zeus build. So this is my preferred way of building Zeus. But, yeah, you do whatever you want. Auto attack Zeus, I like the Warrior's Axe for that a little bit of protection. You are going to have to get in the fight a little bit more to get all those auto attacks off and really be valuable as auto attack Zeus. So that Warrior's Axe goes a long way. With that Mage Zeus getting the Conduit or the Sands, you typically are standing further back and only capitalizing off of really like promising opportunities, right? And you can do stuff from a lot further away without having to penalize your movement speed by auto-attacking a lot. So, yeah, just different style. Get the Warrior's Axe, and then the first item you get is going to be Bracer of the Abyss. This item gives you additional basic attack damage when you hit jungle bosses or enemy gods. 10 additional damage, up to 6 stacks, so you can get 60 extra basic attack damage from this item, in addition to a nice bit of intelligence and a good amount of attack speed. It's going to stack really, really well with Zeus's passive, seeing as he gets 20% damage increase on his basic attacks for every charge on an enemy. So you can get 60% damage increase on somebody if you have all 3 charges. And if you have Bracer of the Abyss, then that number is going to climb really hard, really fast. And you're a level 1, you're a low level Zeus hitting for almost 200 damage with one item. You obviously would not be level 1 by the time you have this, but you get the idea. You start hitting really, really hard, really, really fast, because it synergizes really well with your passive. After that, you get another item that synergizes really well with that passive, seeing as the charges make your damage scale up by a percentage. Why not make your damage scale up by a percentage again by buying crit? So all of a sudden, those 200 damage basic attacks start turning into 400 damage basic attacks when you have 2 items. And then, of course, this gives you even more attack speed, gives you good strength, and just a really solid item overall. And then to round out this core of items, we grab us some pen. Executioner is going to be the best option. Demonic Grip is another option. But let's quickly explain why you should never build Demonic Grip. Demonic Grip. Attack speed item. If you're going to build either Demonic Grip or Executioner, you're getting it because you want to be an auto attacker. Strength. The strength stat scales 1-to-1 to your basic attack damage. 1 strength equals 1 additional basic attack damage. Intelligence stat scales 1 intelligence to 0.2 basic attack damage. So you need 5 intelligence to get the same value to your basic attacks as you do 1 strength. So unless Demonic Grip was 200 intelligence, I would buy Executioner every time if I want to deal damage with auto attacks.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Long story short, don't buy Demonic Grip. Always Executioner. And so this is just the core for auto attack Zeus. Once you have these 3 items, you really can do whatever the heck you want. Because your damage will be juicy. Whatever you do. You're going to want to build as much damage as the enemy team lets you get away with. So, in an ideal world, you would grab a Deathbringer to scale up your damage even harder, and a Titan's Bane, and then you just have a fill item. You get some lifesteal, you could get more crit, you get like a Hydra's, you get whatever the heck you want, really. The main difference between him and Zeus and other auto attackers is you're probably just not going to get chins. You're just going to rely on your big damage from all these items that scale really well with your passive. But something I find a lot of the time with this tanky Zeus, or not tanky Zeus, with this auto attack Zeus, is you're going to need a little bit more tankiness and survivability, because you're going to have to stand still and get out a lot of auto attacks to make this valuable. So it's going to be hard to live sometimes. And so you're going to want to look into options that'll make it easier to live. And those options are Shifter's Shield. A little worse than it was before, because it used to give strength and intelligence while you had over 75% health. Now it only gives you whichever one you have the higher stat in, so you're going to probably be getting additional strength, right? But it does give you nice tankiness from both. Another option is Hussar's Wings. This item will give you protections of both and immunity to slows, which is something that could plague you as a Zeus. You're walking through like a shock rain, you're getting chained up by an Ares, you know, something like that. These heavy slows are going to be really nice to have Hussar's Wings against. And then you've got active effects that you could choose. You've got, in particular, Talisman of Purification is a very nice one to grab. Because, you know, you don't have natural CC immunity on a Zeus. So unless you have a, you know, perma-Afro link, you might want to consider getting a Talisman of Purification for the Fenrir that's ulting you off cooldown. Or the Aladdin that's ulting you off cooldown. Or you might want to consider getting like something like a Stampede. So you can just move a little faster. Like Zeus, that's his biggest problem, right? Is his mobility. And just survivability in general in the fight when people start diving him. So that's what you're trying to shore up. So, yeah. Those are your options. You want to slide a Deathbringer in somewhere, or a Titan's Bane, or both. So, ideally, like I said, you want to get both of these. But sometimes you do have to get a little bit tankier. And that will depend on the game. One other item we didn't mention was Circe's Hexstone, which is an active item that turns you into a pig and you run forward and become CC immune. Gives you health regen, and CD rate. So if I'm getting Ares ulted and I just need to get the heck out, I just do that. It's also on half the cooldown that Beads is, so could be a little nicer in that regard. But it's up to you what you use to try and be more survivable. Only other option we didn't talk about is probably Jade Scepter and Helm of Darkness. Helm of Darkness would be good against like the Odins of the world. Allow you to pass through player-made walls. Hybrid item that gives intelligence and prots. And then Jade Scepter will just knock people back if they get close to you in a little cone. Do that. Pop this on. Gets knocked back. So pretty good against those assassin types. But, you know, there are a lot of different ways you can survive them. And it's up to you which one of those items that we just talked about you want to select to save your life. And, you know, they'll all be good in different situations. But that's the Zeus build. Huge. Hussar's Pig and Stampede. Get them all. Why not? All right. Next up, get a drink of water real fast. Went through our first 2, Hecate and Zeus. 8 more gods to go through that are really strong Joust picks that you should know. And you can use these builds if you're trying to get into it and know what's good. Medusa. So Medusa is pretty much exclusively an auto attack hunter at the moment. Subject to change. You will be going the strongest starter, which is Gilded Arrow right now. Though if this has just gotten nerfed. If it gets nerfed further, we could see Leather Cowl come back into the meta. If Leather Cowl had lifesteal on it, we'd probably build Leather Cowl every game. But it does not. So Gilded Arrow is just the strongest starter you can get because it just scales infinitely and just has a lot of really good stats on it that'll be really, really nice for an auto-attack build. So we go Gilded Arrow first every time. And right now, the flavor of the week is Dagger of Frenzy. This thing gives you an active effect. You pop it, 15-second cooldown. Gives you extra basic attack damage on your next 5 basic attacks. And additional attack speed as well. So very, very powerful. It just got a 10 strength buff. And they buffed the damage per level on the basic attack damage, I believe, from 10 plus 2, I think, to 10 plus 3, I think, is what the buff was. And what's really strong about this item is you can just pop it when you're in the base, and it'll be up by the time you get, to where you're trying to go. And then on Medusa, incredibly powerful, because you can stack it with your 1, and just deal this immense damage. And it resets every time you get a kill. So you can snowball really hard through fights with this item. So just a really, really powerful DPS first item. It will likely get nerfed at some point, so utilize this as quickly as you can. The first item on ADCs tends to, from what I've noticed, change a little bit just depending on how patches go through, but this is the current flavor of the month. You might want to check up on this depending on when you're watching this video, see what people are doing. But right now, that's it. And then after that, the most consistent hunter items, as they've always been, will be Chins and Exy. And never really changes, does it? This is as cookie cutter as it gets. This is the most consistent damage you can really get. You like the Broggies on dual scaling? Yeah, you could definitely do that, but I think the dagger is just so strong right now. And those are options, but as far as like cookie cutter goes, like Hydrogen saying in the chat, you could go Dagger Frenzy or Broggies Harp, or you could even go like Death Metal. Linnaean Bow is decent, but it'll probably be one of those as like a meta first item, regardless of when you watch this video. But this is the pretty consistent, just cookie cutter, really, really simple build. Just Chins, Exy. You do buy the Chins first, because the Chins actually deals quite a significant amount of damage. Early on, unlike in Smite 1, you'll be hitting for like 15 with the Chins if you buy it this early. And Smite 2, really nice to buy the Chins early on. You get the Exy, and then you can finish up a lot of different ways. You can go more Shred, or you can go Crit, are your two main options. So if you go more Shred, you can go Titan's Bane, Oboe, and any other item. On Medusa, I'd probably recommend slapping on a, where's the item? Death Metal, which is actually a crit item. But this item at level 20 has an active effect that will get you, the wielder of the Death Metal, up to 70 strength, 100 intelligence, 20% crit, and 20% attack speed. So this thing is loaded on stats. Really, really solid. And it's 60-second cooldown, so you can get this pretty much every fight. Lasts for 6 seconds when you pop it. So really, really nice buff. For not only you, but it helps your teammates too. You give them 30 strength and, what's that, intelligence? 55 intelligence? Did I calculate that right? Yeah, 55 intelligence. Pretty good on Medusa because she's a hybrid scaler. So she scales with both strength and intelligence decently well. So she makes good use of this. As far as like single crit items go, this is one of the better ones. Like Death Metal or Demon Blade is usually what you're looking for. And if you're a hybrid scaler, Death Metal will be really nice. Death Metal doesn't even need the crit chance on it. Yeah, this thing is cracked. Prefer if it had CDR attack speed. Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't mind the crit, though. I definitely don't mind the crit. So, yeah, this is what you'd go if you go in full shred. I would recommend. If you're going more crit, at this point, you could just slap in, like, Demon Blade, Death Metal, Deathbringer type of thing. And boom, there you go. You got the crit build. You could even consider getting a Titan's Bane, because triple crit is going to be a little bit overkill. So, up to you what you want to do. You also get crit from the Gilded Arrow, so. Yeah. Probably want to choose a Titan's Bane for one of these. Up to you which one. They're all good. Probably it would be Demon Blade on Medusa, I would say. Your attack speed will still be nice with this build. Only other things to talk about are if you're in really particular matchups, you could consider going to like a defensive active item. Like a Stampede, if like the Ares chaining you is a struggle. Probably won't be, but you know, it's an option to consider. You could consider Talisman of Purification if they really do just have CC overload. Or you could consider something like Helm of Darkness if you're getting Odin caged off cooldown. But typically, I would say as a Medusa, you don't really need those options that bad. The Odin one is probably the most concerning one. So Helm of Darkness maybe you consider more often than the other ones. But typically, you don't need to be that defensive. You can just slay them with shred items. So, yeah. Up to you how you're feeling with the build there. But yeah, that's pretty standard Medusa stuff. And it'll serve you well in your games. Boom. Next up, we have Jing Wei. It's going to be pretty similar to Medusa, actually. Medusa. Jing Wei is definitely a character where you're going to go the Dagger of Frenzy rush. Does really well with popping her too, and just like smelting people down with Dagger of Frenzy procs. With unmissable AoE autos. So for the same reason you do it on Medusa, you could do it on Jing Wei. And then it really depends on how the game is going, how you finish this one up. The safest thing you can do, once again, is just going full shred with your next two items. And a little chin Zexy. A Jing Wei can get real feisty with the crit. So as far as cookie cutter builds are concerned, I would recommend doing the same core with Dagger of Frenzy, Chin Zexy on Jing Wei. Because you'll just always deal consistent damage with that. And then you definitely want to lean more into the crit with this god than you do the, whatchamacallit, the shred build. Because she just utilizes the crit so well with her too. Giving you additional scaling on your ability, or on your auto attacks in addition to the crit chance. And you can have so many charges on it when you get points in it. So the crit gets really, really good, really, really fast on her. I'd recommend buying Demon Blade first. Death Metal is a little bit less of a priority, as you don't really make any use of that intelligence. And so you just can go Demon Blade, Deathbringer you want in pretty much any crit build, if you are planning on investing decently heavily into crit. And then you got a choice with this one. Jing Wei does pretty well one-shot build with the Hydra's Lament, actually. Now, if you want to just go, like, big crit city, you could go the Hydras here. More consistent, you could go the Titan's Bane. We did find out that Jing Wei has a thing the other day where when you have Hydras, you actually get a Hydra's proc from your passive. So see how the Hydras reset there? So it's a little bit ridiculous. You can just like drop in on somebody with full Dagger of Frenzy. Hit him with the Hydra's proc, and then like two, and then another Hydra's proc, and both of those are Dagger of Frenzy. So if you crit on both of those, like that dude's getting one shot if he's a squishy, right? So it can get a little ridiculous. But the tanks will probably become annoying for you if you only have Xe for pen. So typically this ends up being a Titan's Bane. Really is up to you. If you just want to go for the flashy one-shot with the Hydras, go ahead. Like, you could even get rid of, like, the chins, and then you can have the Hydras in this build. And, like, I mean, you'll crit the tanks plenty hard. There aren't really enough items in the game for tanks to actually feel tanky, even if you don't go chins. Just because you have 50% pen between Xe and Titans. And then this way, you'll preserve your triple crit plus Hydras and just be doing your one-shot Jing Wei thing. So, up to you, really, what you want to do with it. That's a pretty solid general Jing Wei build. Moving on. We've got Mr. Ullr. Mr. Ullr. Ullr is going to be our solid option for Burst Hunter. Ability Burst. So you can go Bluestone or Bumbas and Joust. I'd say you probably want the clear more, so gonna go for Bluestone. Also, the poke is a little bit more valuable from the Bluestone come the late game. So Joust-wise, probably go the Bluestone. Thank you for the follow, Glow. First item, Joust always feels nice to get items that come online as quickly as possible. So I would personally recommend Jotun's Revenge, just so you can have those cooldowns up as often as possible. Mana won't be too big of an issue with the blue stone, plus you can take the blue buff. So I would recommend Jotuns first, but your other option is, of course, the ever-faded Transcendence, infinite mana item that takes 5 years to stack. Unfortunately, in Joust, most of the time, especially with the way the map plays out right now, you don't have 5 years to stack this Transcendence. You have about 2 minutes before they're down your throat at your Phoenix and taking down your Titan. So I wouldn't recommend getting the Transcendence, but you could get the Transcendence here. Those are your two options. Joust is just so early game driven, I would highly recommend the Jotuns. And then after this, you get, regardless of which build you want, you go Hydra's Lament. Since this build that I'm recommending doesn't have that much mana sustain, I would actually recommend getting the Infused Axe and leaving this for a little bit before you finish the Hydras. And then getting your next item, Teko Kagi, which allows you to really, really spam those abilities and get a lot of pressure out. And then after that, I would go back and finish the Hydras. So you got good mana sustain and you got a lot of cooldown. You got a nice, good core. And the only things you need after that are pen and proc damage. So very simple, very straightforward. Ullr, these are just 3 items he's going to want to go pretty much every game. After this, Titan's Bane for heavy pen, Heartseeker for heavy proc, and Crusher for even more procs. So Titan's Bane, pretty self-explanatory, just really, really big pen. That's what you need. The tanks are going to be very resistant to you with these first 3. So you're going to need to deal as much damage to them as possible. I would even buy the right side of this tree first before the left side of this tree because you just get more pen from it. You'll have a decent base of power with the first 3 items here. Best base would be the Transcendence, but like I said, the Jotuns kind of need that early spike in Joust at least. The Heartseeker is going to be probably your biggest damage spike you're going to get all game. Heartseeker and the Bluestone Brooch. Going to be really, really nice to get these. The Heartseeker will be hitting for like 100 plus damage. And it only goes up because it's going to scale infinitely with how much strength you get. So additional 3k pots will make your Heartseeker hit harder and harder and harder as the game goes on. And then last but not least, we got the Crusher, which is kind of just like less damage Heartseeker with a lot of different stats. Got 10% additional pen, got some CD on it, and it'll give a little bit of extra punch to your abilities. It'll be a little less than the Heartseeker, but it's about the best you can do. I'd say this is better than going like a Brawlers or something even. Just Ullr just really, really reliant on that burst. Like, although you are poking them down and Brawlers could be useful, like, Brawlers only last 4 seconds, man. I just want to burst them as hard as possible, so this is a pretty general Ullr build. The only change that you may make is swap this Jotuns out for Transcendence. Definitely, if you play a good amount of Ullr, test out both and see which one you like more. But I'm telling you, you're going to want that Jotuns. Moving on, we got the 5 DPS characters out of the way that we're going to be talking about. We have 5 tanks. So first couple of these guys are going to be really supporty. Mr. Sobek. The Wish Grinding Pearl if it had more pen or a passive. Yeah, Wish Grinding Pearl is just so expensive, man. I don't love my Wish Grinding Pearl. So Sobek. Before we get into his build, we got to talk about playing tanks in general in Smite 2. The current state of affairs, playing a tank is less about being really tanky and like absorbing a lot of hits, surviving a lot of stuff. It's more about applying a lot of pressure with active items and like prot reductions and surviving because people die really fast right now. The ADCs hurt a lot regardless of what you build. So the best thing you can do is just provide as much utility to the team as possible. And that is what this Sobek build and any other tanky / support build is going to do that we're going to talk about. So first, starter item, you're going to want the support starter. Support starter, available in Joust right now. I'm sure it'll get removed at some point because these things are omega broken in Joust. You just will be top damage every single game unless your teammate is like 20-0. And even then, you might even still be ahead of them in gold just because these things give so much gold. You can go Selflessness or War Flag. I'd say try to go one of each if you can help it in your comp. That's ideal. But if you can only go one of them, I would consider War Flag first because it's going to feel the best aggressively. And if they have just an overload of hard CC, get selflessness instead. On Sobek, you can really go either one. So work it out with your team, or just do the little measurement in your head on which one you like more. But they're both going to be good regardless. And then after that, the most consistent first item you can get is the one and only Stampede. Unless they're triple magical, this item will be probably the most consistent first item you can get on a Guardian at the moment. It just got nerfed, lost attack speed and duration of the buff, but it's still a very significantly strong item. Gives you some nice fizz procs, which will help against the physicals and the towers and the buffs and the Lost Night. Gives you max health, which is the best stat to have early on. Max health will keep you alive the best in the early minutes. And then health regen, which will be nice between fights, between your support starter and your Stampede regen. You will never be hurting too bad in the health department, theoretically. And then, of course, you get the very strong active item effect that makes you really fast and immune to slows. So just a really, really consistent, really solid first item. Great for engagements and disengagements. Stampede. That's it. Pretty much every support is going to be going that first, unless, like I said, you're against like triple magical or something, which we're not going to be building based on potential triple magical encounters. Second item on Sobek, you can consider, I would say, either Screeching Gargoyle, which is going to be really great offensive pressure, silence people and reduce their prots on a relatively low cooldown, in addition to giving you that magical protection that we don't have yet, and a little bit of cooldown, right? Or, if you need it, Talisman of Purification. Once again, magic prot item, but does give a little bit of health, a little bit less cooldown rate, but gives you and your teammates around you CC immunity for a second. So really good against your Ares ults and whatnot. You need to save someone from an enemy Sobek pluck. The Hercules is tossing your team around. So if you're against like really CC heavy stuff, Talisman of Purification will be a little bit nicer. If you're doing this one, you probably would have done this one as well. The selflessness is really strong. The shield from the selflessness is mad annoying to play against, let me tell you. After this, you could go either the item you didn't go before, so you could get Talisman and Gargoyle. If you're against double magical, that'll be really strong. If you're not against double magical, you can consider going into other options. On Sobek, I'll recommend Helm of Darkness. This will be your third active item. You can only have 3 of them. This is a hybrid item. Gives you a little bit of protection of both and gives you some intelligence. But most importantly, you go invisible. So you can just Loki invis and then, you know, wiggle around, and they're going to have to back up, and maybe you have War Flag so you can actually catch up to them, and you just surprise pluck them from the invis is the idea. Works really, really well on this character. So that's what we're going to recommend as your third active item. You could alternatively get like Circe's Hexstone, that second magic D-active item that we were talking about. You get that instead. Like if you want beads, you could, or if you want Talisman, you could go Gargoyle. If you want Gargoyle, you could go Talisman. That's what I'd recommend. Then after this, it's up to you. You're just focused on your active items first for both living and providing utility to the squad, and then you have some freedom. You want to finish the starter as soon as possible, regardless of which one you get. It gives you bonus 1 gold per second. Really OP, these support starters. And then you just need to round out the build however you feel is good. Some items I would recommend are Hussar's Wings. That slow immunity is really nice. If you're getting shock rained over and over, this might be one to consider. It also has protections on both and a fat amount of health, so it's like, can't really go wrong with this item. If you need to deal more damage, you got Stone of Binding.
Your middle tower is
Sobek has 2 hard CCs on non-ult abilities, so you can Stone of Binding people pretty easily and set them up for death really nicely. You could consider one of the Void items, which are hybrid options. If you're against like double magical or double physical, you can choose either or if you have like one carry and he's a hunter or he's a mage, you can choose either or depending on which one will be more valuable for you. Some other options are Ruinous Ankh. If they've got a lot of healing, you could get this. At this point, you could do the same thing that we were talking about with buying like Divine earlier on mages, is you could buy like Ruinous Venom somewhere earlier on in your build than we have here. I do.
Your middle
I can move
tower
these.
is under attack.
Really, I can move these. Yeah, you could buy it like earlier on in your build if you really need the anti-heal, and then just finish the Ankh later on. But if you're against heavy healing, this is probably the most important role to buy the anti-heal on, because I'd say this is just the best item in terms of anti-heal is the Ankh, the finished item, the best finished item. Like Brawlers and Divine, typically your characters building that would rather go something else. So, but the Runa song feels great. So it's all about just providing as much utility to the team and mainly increasing the damage that your squad is going to output as best as you can. If you really are just getting exploded by
Your middle tower
ADCs,
is under attack.
you could opt into something like Leviathan's Hide that will reduce strength of targets that basic attack you. So if you're against like double auto attacker, you could consider this. Or if you just want to kill them, which is going to be a typically better strategy, either kill them or buff up your team so that your team can kill them. You could consider Glad Shield for your killing potential. You could consider Breastplate of Valor so you can pluck in and pluck out a little easier. And yeah, I think those are all the items that we need to talk about. So, yep. Those last 3 slots are just very, very fill-oriented. I'd say for Sobek, the only one you like really need to have in here is Binding and Ankh if they've got a decent amount of healing. Other than that, just, you know, I would consider more Prot Shred, but if you're really getting absolutely obliterated, then you might want to consider like a Hussar's Wings or that, whatchamacallit that we were just talking about. The Leviathan's Hide if you're getting shredded by the Hunter. Hunters do hurt. Bet you already showed mages? We did, but this will be on YouTube later, so don't worry about it. Anyway, moving on. We did Sobek. We will now be talking about Ymir, who's a very strong character at the moment. Ymir has some nice +1s that make him a bit stronger in Joust and just overall. His wall can fire him forward is the big one, so he's got a lot more mobility. Like that. Whee! And it'll actually like interrupt people that are hit by the wall and apply his passive. They're pretty nice, either for pushing him back or bringing him in. It's really easy setup for yourself, and that little knockup can, you know, set up all your other abilities. So yeah, Ymir pretty good. He will be building very similarly to Sobek. Once again, you got to make the choice of the starter here. The support starter is what you want. War Flag is going to be a little bit nicer to have. That extra movement speed feels nice on Ymir, but once again, if they just have CC overload, you probably will want the selflessness. But once again, both are very good, and you want to finish them as soon as possible because they're just infinite gold hacks. Similar to Sobek, you'll be rushing Stampede for all the same reasons. The stats are just going to feel really good, and the active effect is going to be really powerful, aggressively or defensively, and just gives you all the stats you want, really, to start her off, except for magical defense. And so, once again, very similarly to Sobek and any other support, you're going to be looking to go either Screeching Gargoyle or Talisman of Purification as your second item here. Gargoyle to be more aggressive and really provide those, be able to kill them stats. And Talisman of Purification if you really need that defensive measure against characters that are really hitting your team with a lot of hard CC. And then after that, you could go whichever one you didn't get, or you could go my favorite third relic, third active to go on Ymir, Circe's Hexstone. What this does is it turns you into a pig, and you run forward, CC immune. If you hit a god, it'll deal a bit of damage and knock up. So what this does is it gives you another measure of survivability to an otherwise relatively easy to lock down god. We did go over how he's got the wall now and can launch himself, but sometimes that's not enough, and you do need another measure of escape. So Circe's Hexstone is a really good third active item to get on a character that has trouble living at times, like an Ares or a Ymir. You know, just has limited mobility that makes it a little tougher to live. And a lot of the time you do want to engage with your wall, right? So like if I engage with my wall, get my whole kit, and then I'm getting blasted by the hunter while I'm ulting, I'm like, oh god, I need to leave! Like, you can just do that. Or you can use it as an engage tool and save your wall to get out, right? So you just do that, you know, it sets up my freeze, sets out all that, and I'm like, yep, I'll see you guys later. Type of thing. So really strong core. You may notice the trend of when we play support, we just buy triple active item. It's because this is the best way to live. And that Circe's Hexstone will give you 400 health, 4 health regen, 10 CD rate, so. Goes really nicely with, you got a prod item that has health, you got another prod item of the other type that has health, and then you got just like a bunch of health. So you just get a lot of great stats, and really round out your build by going these 3 on Ymir. And then, the rest of the build is kind of up to you. Ymir is probably going to, more often than not, be looking into finishing something like a Hussar's Wings and a Stone of Binding, which you can build interchangeably here. Stone of Binding is going to be really, really useful because you can proc it very easily by either knocking them back with your wall or freezing them. And then the Hussar's Wings is going to be really nice because Ymir is, you know, a relatively immobile god if you're using your wall to engage, and you're not going to be using your wall to disengage. So that Hussar's Wings slow immunity will be really nice against stuff that typically bogs Ymir down. Like getting Sobek plucked and then Sobek ulted after is a big issue for Ymir in Smite 1, but if you get the Hussar's Wings, it becomes much less of an issue. Between your Hussar's Wings and your Circe's Hexstone, you should be able to escape. Even your Stampede and your Talisman of Purification will help save you. So, there you have it. Just try and survive while providing a lot of utility to the squad. So these are typically the ones you're going to get, I would say, unless they just do not have slows. And then after that, it's up to you. You can invest a little heavy into auto attack if you want. Ymir does do very well with auto attack because of his passive, obviously. So if you want to go for a little bit more bruiser style towards the end of the build, you could slap on a Berserker Shield. Gives you 50 of each protection with the passive proc in addition to 40% attack speed. So it's just stat overload. And it's pretty cheap too, 2,300. The only thing is it doesn't have health, right? But you've built a good amount of health by this point. So you could get a Berserker Shield. You could get even more Prot Shred, like similar to Sobek. You could grab that Void Stone or the Void Shield. You could even grab something like a Triton's Conch if you just want to be aggressive and help your team out with the additional stats. Give them an aura of strength and intelligence while boosting your health in addition to your strength and intelligence. Or you could even get crazy and get a Dagger of Frenzy. Nope, you can't get crazy and get a Dagger of Frenzy because it's another active item. So I guess if you really felt like you didn't need Circe's Hexstone, you could get a Dagger of Frenzy. Because Dagger of Frenzy increases your basic attack damage by a flat amount, right? And Ymir passive increases his basic attack damage by a very significant amount. So if you apply Frostbite and have Dagger of Frenzy, you're starting to hit kind of hard. So, you see how fast that Ymir can be attacking if he wants to. Really powerful Ymir on it. But maybe that's a conversation for another time, since this is more of a support build. But yeah, Ankh once again is a good one to consider. You could buy the early stages of your Ankh earlier on in your build if you really need the anti-heal. Anti-heal is always a prevalent stat, especially if you're against those pesky healers. And then similar to Sobek once again, if you need some more auto attacker protection, Leviathan's Hide is a good one to stop those pesky physical damage dealing auto attackers. And yeah, I think that's about it. The main difference between him and Sobek was kind of the Hexstone and getting like Berserker Shield instead of Glad Shield if you want to deal some more damage. But for the most part, very similar characters. They just operate slightly differently to where like the mobility is a little bit nicer on the Ymir from like the Circe's Hexstone versus the Helm of Darkness. Boom. Mad Grandma with purse vibe. What is he talking about? All right, next up we've got our warrior-esque characters. Mr. Hercules is the first one. We love Hercules. This character feels mad good right now. I've been loving him. So he's going to be a very bruiser character. And so unlike your support characters like your Ymir and your Sobek, this dude is going to be more of a like hybrid, a truer hybrid. He's going to be able to deal a lot of damage, and take some hits. Not going to take the hits as well, but he's going to try to be similarly mobile and provide a lot of damage and provide kill potential. On his own is what he's looking for. He may or may not be able to actually kill people on his own, but that'll come down to the game. Starter. We're just going to go straight up support starter. You could go axe, but support starters are just better. More money. More good. So you want to be the war flag guy. Playing like a Sobek alongside a Hercules. Great combo. But you can't be both supports. That's the biggest thing. If you're going to play double frontline, one of your guys needs to deal damage. And he needs to deal a lot of it. But you can't go double support starter. You get rich. So first item. Who would have guessed? You're going to get Stampede. Because a Hercules running to you mad fast is a scary guy. Also protects you from those slows that bog you down as a Hercules. Really nice first item to have. Second item. You've got a few choices. You could get the Gargoyle. He's going to start off like pretty much exactly the same as a support, but he's going to finish off with more damage, basically. You could go for the Gargoyle here. You could go for the Talisman of Purification. Or you could go like excessive damage output and go like something like Stone of Binding. Because that'll reduce protections by 15 flat. And Herc has 3 different hard CCs. You got one here, and you got one here. So this dude popped the Stone of Binding real quick. Real easy. He also does very well with cooldown. So getting either that Gargoyle or that Talisman will be nice. Or you could get something like this, Breastplate of Valor, which will reduce your cooldowns and you take a good bit of damage. So that's a good one to go, especially if you're against a lot of physical damage. It's a lot easier to manage magical damage with lower magical defense than it is to measure or to combat physical damage dealers. Because your physical damage dealers will typically be dealing their damage much more often than your magical damage dealers. Your magical damage dealers, unless it's like auto attack Zeus, will typically be chunking you down with their abilities, which are much easier to avoid than the 4 basic attacks coming out per second from the Dagger of Frenzy Medusa. So typically the physical defense is going to be your choice. But you could go, like we said, like the magical defense options there. So let's just assume you went like Gargoyle because you didn't really need Talisman of Purification that bad. Next item. You could go a number of different items. So you want to get as aggressive as possible, as early as possible. So as soon as you feel like you're survivable enough, to the point where you don't need to go like a straight up defense item on Hercules, you're going to want to slide in like heavy cooldown rate, like a breastplate, and then a Tekko Kagi. This is my like combo of choice right now for Hercules, is having breastplate and Tekko in any build, because it makes it really easy to proc his passive. So how his passive works is when you hit someone with your 1, your 2, your ult, or you cast your 3, you get a stacking effect up to 4 stacks. And when you get that 4th stack, you go big mode, which gives you AoE autos, additional strength, and reduces all your cooldowns by 2 seconds. And if you build a lot of cooldown, it's really easy to get into big mode very often. Big mode do be lasting quite a good amount of time, 10 seconds and then 1 extra second per level. It also gives you protections, 2 per level. So it's a very strong effect to get into as often as you can, and the better you can control it, the nicer it is. So typical way to keep the big mode active, you get 1 stack from your 1, 1 stack from your 2, 1 stack from your 3, 2 stacks from your ult. You need 4, right? Easiest way to do it without even having to ult is you pop your 3, you walk around, and you can get these stacks from hitting anything. Hit it your 2 on that, and then once this goes below 5 seconds, you just use your 1, and then before this timer runs out, you can pop your 3 again. Boom, big mode. And then you're just a lot stronger in the fight. So it becomes a lot easier to get into the big mode the more cooldown rate you have. So the earlier you can get the breastplate and the Tekko into your build, the better. And it's going to be completely up to you when you feel that point arrives. It could be as early as here. It could be as early as here. Sometimes you might even have to get it, like, down here. But as early as it is feasible, you want to get these two online so you can manage your passive really easily. Sometimes you're able to get it, you know, here. And then you're feeling really nice. It just depends on how the game is going, on how well you feel like you can manage the opponents and their damage. Then after that, you just want to try and do some more damage. If you are still having problems with survivability, Hussar's Wings is going to be your go-to. Hussar's Wings and Circe's Hexstone. Circe's Hexstone giving you that kind of get out of jail free card or get into fight free card is going to be really nice. So that's what I would typically get as your third active item. If you are to get it, you don't always have to get all three active items. In fact, it can be nicer if you can get more damage in the build. So this is what, like, maybe as tanky as you would go. Is this how a tanky Herc build would look? But if you feel safe enough, you want to try and get Stone of Binding, Oath Sworn Spear, and Void Shield. Any and all of these three items will provide you immeasurable extra damage on your Hercules. So Stone of Binding, as we went over, has 3 hard CCs in the Herc kit. You can apply this 15 protection reduction pretty easy. With Thorn Spear, you can apply this maximum 20 physical protection reduction. Pretty easy, you just have to hit an ability on somebody. And then, of course, Void Shield giving 15 flat shred in addition to some fizz prots and a little bit of strength and health. It's going to be really nice. So fitting any and all of these in your build is going to be ideal. So this is the highest like damage output I would recommend on a Hercules to build. Though, of course, you have very limited magical protections. So unless you're against like Ymir, Bellona, Medusa, you probably wouldn't be able to get away with very little magic prots like this. I guess you have Warbanded for magic prots too. But yeah, that's what it's going to look like. Fitting those 3 items in as damage, and then figuring out how much tankiness, survivability you need with these 3 items is going to be the old Hercules build. All right. Did you have that best gods? It's still there, Shardy. It is still there. Here, I'll put it up again. We are currently on just finished Hercules. And we are moving on to the old Shocker. Mr. Chaac. This is probably my favorite god to play in Joust. And he's going to go very similarly to Hercules. You are going to be going as much damage as you can feasibly fit, while also remaining tanky. The difference between Chaac and Hercules, though, is going to be Chaac can play from a much further distance and be safe and still deal damage. So Chaac is going to be the only one on this list that has the aspect on, which makes your rain, instead of healing you, it deals damage. So that's going to take away from your sustain, but we have other avenues to resolve that problem. So Chaac, you have 3 choices for the starter. You can go Infinite Gold Hack with Selflessness or War Flag, or you can go Infinite Damage Hack with Bluestone. Especially since you have the aspect on, the Bluestone will be quite easy to get a lot of value out of with that rain. But of course, you won't have that OP gold. So, potentially it could be nicer to just have the support starter. But it's up to you. I typically go Bluestone, but support starter could be nice. The one thing you lose by turning on the aspect for the Chaac is, of course, your sustain. So the first item you're going to go is going to be a sustain item. So going to be a damage sustain item. Damage trumps tankiness for Chaac, I found, in this first item. And you have 2 choices. You're either going to go the Reaper. You want physical or strength damage, which Chaac's strength scaling is a little bit higher than his intelligence scaling. Or you can go Soul Gem. It's another very nice CD item that gives good lifesteal and great sustain. Really is up to you. I think the Reaper is a little nicer because I do prefer that strength, but that intelligence from the Soul Gem will be nice too. It depends on what you're feeling. Chaac is a great hybrid scaler. Gets away with strength and intelligence builds very easily. And the only thing is the intelligence builds become a little bit less good with aspect on. Because the intelligence, the heal gets stronger if you build more intelligence. But since we have the aspect on, it's dealing damage. And it's going to be dealing quite significantly more damage with more strength. So, up to you. I typically like the Reaper, but you could go Soul Gem. So I'll just put the Reaper in. And then after this, you're going to get it even freakier. And we're going to go more damage. Once again, Chaac is able to maintain his distance by just 1-3 in the wave. Job's done. Like, I don't even have to get close to them to get my Chaac value with the aspect on, because I can clear the wave with just my 1 and my 3. Do not have to get very close. So it can be quite valuable and allow you to get away with this Tekokagi build after. Chaac, his 1 and his 2 have 8-second base cooldown when you get them rank 5. So you can poke very early and very often. And if you get a Tekokagi, your 1 and 2 are down to 6.15 second cooldowns. So it becomes pretty annoying to play against a Chaac that's constantly 1ing and 3ing you. With his 3 on a 10-second cooldown. So it's really naughty real fast. Then after this, we need to make a decision about how tanky we need to be. I found the nicest third item to go here is either Talisman of Purification or Screeching Gargoyle. We don't have Stampede in this build, you may notice, but I've come to utilize Chaac as more of a just ability caster, just poking people, and you're not taking that much damage. So you're really buying either of these two items to be more aggressive. So you're buying the Screeching Gargoyle so that you can like screech on a god and then ult them instantly. And then they're silenced for a, you know, the greater part of a year. They're really locked down. Or you can get the Talisman of Purification and survive those Fenrir ults and Ares ults and, you know, all those other lock you down for a long time ults. Like Aladdin is going to maybe ult you or your team. And the only way I have to really immune an Aladdin ult is my ult. So if I'm using my ult for literally anything else, it could be nice to have the Talisman of Purification. And on Chaac, you're pretty much always going Blink, because you can do this. So really, really nice to have the additional CC immunity on the Talisman of Purification. And then after that, the world's your oyster. It really just depends on how you feel the game is going. Similarly to Hercules, in a perfect world, you just fit in full damage after this point, and you just go like Titan's Bane, Heartseeker, Crusher / Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver, of course, doesn't really care about how much strength you have. It just deals decent damage. So you go that type of proc build. Though the Heartseeker will definitely like if you build Crusher more, because Heartseeker, of course, infinitely scales with your strength on that passive proc from the Heartseeker. But it's up to you which one you do. And then you'll buy 3k strength pots pretty much exclusively in this build. You could alternatively get Totem of Death and just really have really nice tank shred, because it's going to stack nicely with your Heartseeker and your Titan's Bane, and you're going to have a 60% pen. So you'll be dealing quite a good bit of damage. Now, a lot of the time, though, you can't really get away with just full damage. So more often than not, the rest of your build is going to look more like Titan's Bane, like Hussar's Wings, and maybe like another active item. You could get the Stampede later on in the build. So more often than not, it'll look something like this. This Titan's Bane could be like a Heartseeker. You do have infinitely scaling 3k pot, so the Heartseeker could definitely end up doing more for you as you grab those 3k pots. But I think the Titan's Bane is just really nice to have. So up to you. You could even get, you know, Totem of Death or whatever. Especially if you went like the Soul Gem instead of the Reaper first for sustain. It would make a little bit more sense for you to build similarly to this order here. Then you could even turn the Techo into a Gem of Focus, but I think the additional CD rate from the Techo is more valuable than the intelligence from the Gem of Focus. You can make your build like really, really weird and have it still be really, really good, is basically the gist of what we're getting at here. And then, of course, you would finish this whenever you can. But the shock build is very flexible, and you're trying to fit as much damage in as possible without feeling like you're insta-dying, is the idea. For Ullr, Bluestone over Bumpus Hammer? Yes, that's what we did. We talked about Ullr just a few minutes ago, and it will be in the YouTube video later. All right, last but not least, we have a god that nobody wants to see against them. And some people would like to see with them. Tank Aphro. So Tank Aphro is unfortunately probably the strongest Joust pick right now. And her only weakness is her early game. Her early game, honestly quite terrible. But even with Joust being an early-centric game mode, this character is just so obnoxiously good. And you just build her full tank. You could build her full damage, but full tank is just more effective, if we're being honest. Because it's a DPS meta. People die really fast. And she has not only one of the best ways to give you more damage through a 15% damage increase on her one that she can activate either by kissing an enemy god or by switching her link to the other allied god. So she can give both your teammates 15% additional damage in addition to herself. Like, she can give every single person on your Joust team 15% additional damage. For how long? 5 seconds. You can start a team fight by switching your link to your other teammate, and everyone will deal 15% increased damage for 5 seconds. That is broken. Everyone gets a Runeforged proc. And then on top of that, she can make you immune to damage in CC for 2 seconds. And she can get this thing pretty low in cooldown if she wants to. You can be playing against a 40-second Aphro ult if the Aphro itemizes the way she wants to. So this character gets really ridiculous really fast, and it's really annoying. But that's just the way the game is right now. So Aphrodite, Tank Aphro, you're going to go either War Flag or Selflessness. Either one is good. As we said, like, I'd prefer to have War Flag, but if they've got a lot of CC, or I've got a teammate that's building the other one, you can get Selflessness. Really strong. And then you get to build this item. Lifebinder. It's kind of like, what's that item called from Smite 1? Curse Weaver. Similar to Curse Weaver. But how this works is you throw out like a Mori 2. And it marks any god you hit and deals a little bit of damage. See? A little thing there. And then you see they get marked with that little green heart above their head. The next person on your team to hit that guy will get a heal and a shield. Based on... I actually don't even know what it's based on. 130 plus 5 per level heal. 15-second cooldown. So, even at early ranks, you can get like a 300 HP health swing plus an 150 shield. Like, as soon as you finish this item. And it ends up very, very, very powerful. It is an intelligence item with health and health regen. And you can even hit, like, minions with this thing. So, it's pretty much the best, like, pressure item to go first. You can hit the wave, you can mark people, gives a massive heal, a massive shield. And it's just insane. And Joust is a pressure game mode that starts early. Aphro's kit is base kit is a little bit weaker earlier on. But as soon as you finish this thing, you're going crazy. After that, you just kind of do like normal support things. You get Stampede so you can move fast. Aphro, one of the things she struggles with is, you know, getting slowed down. You're getting bogged down by like Shock Rain, like makes it impossible for her to play the game. So you just throw a Stampede on it and you're moving really fast. Every 90 seconds. And then, similar to everyone else, you just go
Your
Gargoyle
middle tower
/
is
Talisman
under attack.
after that, depending on what you need. Aphro, of course, is going to need the Talisman even less than other gods since she's got so much safety with her ultimate. She can even teleport to a teammate now if she wants to. If you do one of these, I'll show you really fast. I can link to this guy, and when I ult, if I recast my ult, I can just teleport to him. So, you know, Odin Cage is no longer an issue. And it resets the cooldown of your 3 instead of just taking off half the cooldown. So I can, you know, like, beat up this totem, like, Lifebinder, and I'm hitting him with all my stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. And then I hit him again. Like, why not? And then we're moving really fast, and then I'm silencing him, and then my teammates are all doing 15% extra damage. And it's just ridiculous. Like, she does too much. So, yeah, that's Aphrodite. Any other god you'd put Lifebinder on? You can play support the Morgan and do very well with pretty much exactly the same build we're doing here. We're just showcasing Aphro because she's just the stronger variant. So if we're only going to showcase 10 gods, this has got to be the one that we showcase for this type of gameplay. And then last but not least, the rest of her build, very similar to the other supports we've listed in the game. Morgan support? Yeah, Morgan support with aspect on. Morgan,
Your middle tower
her
is under
aspect
attack.
allows you to throw out her 3, and then you can teleport to her 3 at any point during its lifetime, and you'll just, you know, switch places with it. And then the trade-off is you don't go invisible when you use the ability. And I don't think you get the move speed either. But back to the Aphro. The rest of the build is very similar to other supports, where you get like Hussar's Wings and Stone of Binding, and you can build them interchangeably. Really depends how soon you need it. As we talked about before with the Stampede, Aphrodite is a character that is susceptible to getting bogged down by slows. Really annoying sometimes for her to like follow her Link around, right? Because you're just getting blasted by all their CC while your Hercules or Ares is like pushing him around in the back. And you're like, I can't get to you. But, you know, if you got Stampede and Hussar's Wings, it could be a little easier to get through that shock rain and whatnot. Make your way through those Ares chains and just, you know, really abuse your additional movement speed and not have any fear of that movement speed getting removed from you. With the Hussars, and the Stone of Binding, of course, is very good. You're going to give people a 15% damage boost when you kiss an enemy god. Why not give them 15 reduced protections on the guy you hit, too? You know? You can get it with your 2 as well. And then your last item's up to you. You could get a Void Shield or Void Stone if you want to reduce more prots. You could get World Stone, which is really annoyingly good on this character. Would take your ult from 86.96 here down to 60. Minus 37 seconds. Or 27 seconds on your ult. If you don't really feel like you need like the Hussars, you could get Gem of Focus in here for some additional movement speed and more CD rate. So, once again, you just want to be like as greedy as possible with your build while still being able to survive everything that's coming at you. So, in an ideal world, you'd probably go get something like this, and then your ult would be on a 52-second cooldown. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. So, you got to watch out for those Aphrodites. Another option is Breastplate if you want additional cooldown on top of that. It'll give you some of the best CD you can get. Breastplate. 48-seconder with that. So the cooldown on that sucker gets real low real quick, and you can still be very, very tanky. So watch out for Aphrodite. She's super strong. If you guys just want to be evil Aphrodite abusers and Joust, go ahead, be my guest. The more frustration that's created about it, the more complaints you'll get, and the faster she'll get nerfed. So thank you guys very much for checking that one out. But last but not least, we'll throw up the 10 strong Smite 2 gods we're talking about and all their builds. If you guys want to take one last look at all that. And yep, once again, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment on what we should do next. And we will see you in the next one.